Welcome to the first day of February 2024, your day weather podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that with the cold weather and the stormy weather returning, you're going to find yourself in nice hot water in Thermopolis. Check them out at thermopolis.com. Well, we've got a pattern flip coming, no doubt about it. We are going to have another gorgeous day. For those of you in the high plains, the central plains, and the Rockies, it's just going to be another day like we've had all week, spring-like. But the stormy weather is now really beginning to batter the West Coast, as you'll see here in a moment. Very stormy weather will be pounding California, Washington, and Oregon, getting down into portions of Arizona and Nevada here today, even down into northwest areas of Mexico, getting into this stormy weather. The Friday night through Sunday time frame is when the push of this moisture comes to the divide and along and east of the divide, and everybody gets into the action with areas of rain and snow and fog. It's going to be certainly a problem for travel, although we are going to see, as I'll show you here in a moment, the snow levels are very high. There's actually going to be a fair amount of rain with this storm, as we have been mentioning, because of the warmth. We are still, though, along the higher elevation roadways. Interstate 80 in Wyoming, I-70 in Colorado, the mountain passes like South Pass and Teton Pass, Powder River Pass. You're going to get into some very heavy snow in some of the high mountain areas and very limited visibilities. And stock growers, be prepared for some cooler wet weather conditions. It's basically like a system we would see right out of April, honestly. This pattern, since it's going to be pulling in Gulf of Mexico moisture, that's something you see as you get later in the season. But due to the unusual configuration of how the jet stream is just configured with this particular pattern, it's going to be more like a spring storm. Now, there's a benefit to this. This is high water content air. This is going to bring needed moisture. So it's a good thing. And folks, spring isn't here. This is a little bit of an interruption in winter, that's it. And we're going to go, as we'll show you here in a minute, right back into a more wintry pattern in the longer term. Another thing to point out, southeast facing slopes. So wherever you are in the west, if you're along a mountain range where the upslope winds are more intense when the surface wind is coming from the southeast to moving to the northwest. So if you were to face southeast and the wind's blowing in your face, those aspects of those ridges and those mountains are going to see the heaviest moisture, as there will be a very persistent southeast upslope wind. The pattern is flipping toward the colder, more stormy pattern at least through the first half of February. Some great shots. The sunrise, sunset photos have been spectacular this week. There's another great shot, and then get ready in Leadville for those mountains to be obscured soon with snow, but a beautiful shot there. So we've had some beautiful vistas, some beautiful days, and that's already about ready to come to change. And this is why. Yesterday we showed you that very well-formed storm. It's still a very impressive storm, but it's now beginning to go into two pieces. If you look carefully, you'll see a circulation here. That's one area of low pressure. And then the other system right here, the other circulation is forming there. This guy is going to hang back. This guy is going to head this way. And that's going to instigate all the changes. Another satellite photo I wanted to show you is down in southwestern areas of Wyoming. See this area of blue right here? We also have some other patches of blue right here around Jackson and into eastern Idaho. This is low cloudiness and fog that has set up over the last couple of days. You can see it from space. These are low fog or stratus clouds. The air is trapped here in the lower elevations of southwestern Wyoming, and there's been just a very persistent low cloud and fogginess as the air will get trapped under strong high pressure. Now, this all coming from the west will stir it up and mix it up and get rid of it, but you've got another foggy start to your day in parts of southwestern Wyoming. Here's your radar this morning, so you can see the precipitation slamming into California. The snow will be measured with a yardstick in the Sierra Nevada, and you can see now we're getting a bigger push eastward of that moisture. This is the current advisories, watches, and warnings. This will continue to expand, but you can see from these areas here, these are where we have winter storm watches or advisories. The green would be areas of flooding concerns. That will expand in the coming days. So there we have the double-barreled storm. The high pressure is hanging on. It's putting up a fight. You can see how impressive it is. This high pressure is actually going to survive the battle, but this guy right here is going to take out the bottom of it, as you'll see here in a moment. So this is the precipitation forecast through tomorrow. Through Friday, the heaviest precipitation butts right up against the divide. You can see the southwest mountains of Colorado are going to be getting into the heavy snow here over the next 24 to 36 hours. The mountains of Arizona as well. And then you can see that just the very impressive rain totals here. But it stays west of the divide for one more day. These showers here, an indication of that moisture from that low off the west coast beginning to bring moisture up from the Gulf Coast. Snowfall forecast through tomorrow. Then by Saturday morning, the models have been pretty darn consistent with this area of low pressure being in northeast New Mexico and southeastern Colorado by Saturday morning. There's a separation between the two storms now, and we have just that perfect setup of the clockwise and counterclockwise circulations giving a very persistent southeast to northwest flow of air from the Gulf like a straw. It's just feeding that moisture back northwestward. And since this guy here is going to move very slowly, it's going to be a persistent pattern of bringing that moisture northwestward. This is by Sunday morning. So Saturday, Sunday. See, it doesn't move very much. And look at the trajectory of the air right here. Comes right back in all the way up into Alberta. So this is just a good feed of moisture. Like I said, this is a good thing. This is going to bring needed moisture back northwestward into some very areas of like places like Montana that really need it, and parts of northern Wyoming that really need it. You're finally going to get into the action. And this guy just hangs out. And as it does so, it's just going to drive more rain into California. So all of a sudden, there's a lot happening. So here's the same model I showed you yesterday, the national blend of the models. And you can just see that feed of moisture coming back and going all the way back up. Those dark blue areas is where you're going to see the most consistent precipitation. Then you can see the heavier snows in the mountains. We do have some areas that are shaded, though. If you're going to have a strong southeast flow, you're not going to do as well in southwestern Wyoming. So there's a little bit of a hole there. There's a little bit of a hole in the Bighorn Basin. But as we'll show you, as you get along the east slopes of the mountains, where that southeast upslope flow is going to do well, you're going to see some heavier snow amounts. And here's kind of that axis we've been showing you over the last couple of days. Right along there, just on either side of that axis is where the better moisture is going to just coalesce and be together. Notice there's no snow of any consequence, at least showing up. I think it's going to snow in these areas. It's just not going to accumulate because it's going to be so warm and a lot of it's going to be rain. So you can see that there's a lot of precipitation in Kansas and Nebraska, northeastern Colorado, down Oklahoma and Texas. That is not snow. It's mostly rain. But as you see, as you get further back westward into the higher elevations, you're going to see that moisture. So this is through Tuesday. Look at those snow totals there in the Sierra Nevada. Wow. So if you go focus in a little bit more into Wyoming and northern Colorado and northeastern Utah here and parts of Montana and Idaho, here you can see where we're going to have a little bit of a snow hole, right here. Also, just on the other side of the Owl Creeks here, and that's mainly because some of that is going to be in the form of wet snow and rain. Black Hills, a wet, heavy, spring-like snow going into that area as well. Now, as we go forward, this is by Wednesday. That same low, this is the same low, is hanging out in the California still, so it's just going to keep raining along the west coast through Wednesday. This is going to get a kick eastward. So as we get into Wednesday night, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to see wintry weather come right back into the Rockies. Here's another one queued up, and we've got this high pressure building here. Then going out, this is going out all the way to Valentine's Day right here. What I want to show you here is, and we'll spend more time on this once we get done with this first storm, but we're seeing a trend change out in the Pacific of high pressure wanting to build there. If that builds there, as you podcast viewers have known by watching high pressure ridges, when you get a ridge here, you go into the fridge here. So this is something that we're seeing consistently about 2 weeks from now, which is if this high pressure rebuilds, that coalesces the Arctic air and the Canadian air and allows it to start to move southward again. Hence, this bout of spring weather we've enjoyed isn't a signal that that's how it's going to go for the rest of the winter. In fact, it could get very cold. And here's something else. There are two teleconnections that we see in the long term that are cold signals. The Arctic Oscillation goes below zero. The below zero means when you have a negative phase, in a negative oscillation phase, that's a cold signal for the West. So starting this weekend and all the way through the 17th right here, it's in a negative phase. That's a cold signal overall. Another cold signal and a stormy signal is the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. Beginning this weekend, it generally stays negative through that whole period, through the next 2 weeks. So changes are afoot. There you can see those changes with temperature. This is right around or just after Valentine's Day, the temperature anomaly. So we'll see what happens. But first things first, we've got this first storm to deal with this next 24 to 96 hours. We'll have more for you tomorrow.